Our next guest has long experience with the current leadership of the UAE. He provided them with hunting falcons at an al-Qaeda camp, where there he witnessed the personal interaction between the Emirates, the Emiratis, the princes of the UAE, and Osama bin Laden. Alan Parrot joins us now. He is the CEO for the Union for the Conservation of Raptors, and as you can see, Alan has a hunting falcon on his arm now. Alan, you were the falconer for one of the UAE emirs. You saw them at these falcon camps with Osama bin Laden. What did you see?
Okay. While the administrations have pursued al-Qaeda's training camps and tried to put them out of business as best they could, they have failed to close down the falconry camps, which are the real venue for planning the terror events that we have seen around the world. Osama bin Laden arrives at these camps for a month at a time as guests, as a VIP guest of our allies in the Gulf, including the United Arab Emirates.
And these emirs from the UAE would bring their military jets in there, their C-130s, loaded with equipment. They would hunt with falcons with bin Laden.
Yes. And
then they would leave the equipment behind for him.
Yes, that's why we call these the money camps. Bin Laden, the falconer camps are an essential keystone to the existence of al-Qaeda. And the United States has even asked the Emirates to shut down these camps, and they have refused to do so. In 1999 is a prime example in the testimony of Richard Clarke in the 9/11 Commission. There was an opportunity to bomb bin Laden in a camp hosted by Sheikh Hamdan bin Zayed, the UAE foreign minister. Richard Clarke tipped off Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the third-born son of the UAE president, who informed his brother that they were about to become vaporized, and lives were saved. Unfortunately, the wrong lives were saved. Bin Laden's life was saved, as well as his co-conspirators, the UAE foreign minister and his family, that were providing the cars, the cash, the weapons, and the material support to al-Qaeda delivered in the venue of these falconry camps.
Were you ever witness to or had reason to believe that the UAE Emiratis were actually handing checks, handing cash to bin Laden?
We have evidence of the UAE leader passing a check through one of his sons to bin Laden on his order. This is irrefutable. We also have evidence from Mr. Ronald Motley, who's representing the World Trade Center victims. He's suing Saudi Arabia on behalf of the people killed in 9/11, and he claims in his lawsuit that 1 billion Saudi riyals was transferred to Osama bin Laden in a falconry camp in Afghanistan.
By the UAE?
By Saudi Arabia. Prince Turki Al Faisal, the current Saudi ambassador in Washington. This is alleged in the Ronald Motley lawsuit.
Then how does it make sense that the UAE divorced itself from all of these people and from al-Qaeda so thoroughly that the U.S. is trusting them implicitly?
Well, the UAE is very selective in its allied relationship with the United States. It is to their advantage to control United States ports, but when it's to their disadvantage to obey international laws and mandates, they do not obey. For example, we have caught the UAE foreign minister and the current president and other leaders of the UAE violating UN trade sanctions that were imposed on the United Arab Emirates in 2001. And when we caught them, these trade sanctions were reinforced on March 18th, 2002. And again, we caught the United Arab Emirate leadership smuggling and using government aircraft to do so. These are the top leaders of the country who are violating UN sanctions, UN trade sanctions, and international treaties.
Alan Parrot, thanks very much, Alan. By the way, if you'd like to hear more from Alan, he's going to be a guest on my radio show coming up in just about a half an hour. Alan Parrot, falconer to the Emiratis. Alan, thanks very much.
After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
But now, a new investigation says the official story is a lie. In an explosive report, the veteran journalist Seymour Hersh alleges a vast deception on everything from how bin Laden was found to how he was killed. According to Hersh, Pakistan detained bin Laden in 2006 and kept him prisoner with the backing of Saudi Arabia. In 2010, a Pakistani intelligence officer disclosed bin Laden's location to the CIA. Hersh says the U.S. and Pakistan then struck a deal. The U.S. would raid bin Laden's compound in Abbottabad, but make it look as if Pakistan was unaware. In fact, Hersh says top Pakistani military leaders provided key help.
The report also challenges the initial U.S. account of how bin Laden was killed. Hersh says there was never a firefight inside the compound and that bin Laden himself was not armed. Questions are also raised about whether bin Laden was actually buried at sea, as the U.S. claimed. Hersh says, instead, the Navy SEALs threw parts of bin Laden's body into the Hindu Kush Mountains from their helicopter.
Hey, good morning, Alan. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Nick, and great to be here.
Please introduce yourself to everybody. Your full name.
My name's Alan Parrot. I was a Falconer for Arab political leaders for 20 years, and then I spent another 10 years in former Soviet territories doing conservation work and catching falcon smugglers.
Excellent. So we crossed paths about a year ago, or no, about 8 months ago, and I have always been searching for the reasons as to why they wanted everyone to die in Benghazi. And boy, do you have some really good information that explains everything. And we appreciate that you're taking the time to share it with us, everyone. So
thank you. Well, I have to say that our military are so well trained, their work is compartmentalized. And the only people that understand the full story are the people at the top. And they have made some very bad decisions for this country and for the former Navy SEAL Ty Woods and his brethren who perished unnecessarily at the hands of Hillary Clinton. And in the large picture, this involves Joe Biden and John Brennan.
could you explain the context of how did this all start?
Well, the gestation, the beginning was in the 70s during the Church Commission when an alternate CIA was created called the Safari Club. And the Safari Club was financed by overseas allies. It was outsourced to foreign banks. I have 2 banks and bank accounts that were used by the Safari Club and the individuals with checks paid out by them. Osama bin Laden was one of the recipients of funding from this alternate CIA that was subverting the oversight control of the successor to the Church Commission, and that is the Senate Intelligence Committee. 1 week before bin Laden was killed, I was called down to the Senate Intelligence Committee to give statements and evidence. And I have quite a few tape recordings and of senior members who were aware of bin Laden's house arrest in Iran for 10 years following Tora Bora. This was arranged by John Brennan. This is why Gary Bernson was not allowed to kill Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora when he was only a few hundred yards away, because the plans had been made and set in stone by John Brennan to extradite bin Laden from Tora Bora to Iran, where he remained under house arrest for 10 years with more than 100 al-Qaeda leaders and their families.
So what you're saying is that there was no need for us to invade Afghanistan under the pretext of getting al-Qaeda if the US government knew and was actually protecting his life in Iran. Is that correct?
Well, I have to say it was rogue elements of the US government controlled by John Brennan, Richard Clark, Vice President Biden, quite a few people. There's a long list of people They started with good intentions. The Safari Club was begun to fight the expansion of the USSR, but it turned into a very distorted operation over the years. And Osama bin Laden was the figurehead manifestation of this alternate CIA. And so they had to protect him in their bad judgment. And you see, one lie leads to another. Our parents always taught us this. And so when my team, we planned a program to go in and get bin Laden in Iran. We were going to catch him when he was falconry hunting, because I spent 20 years living with Arab political leaders, training their falcons and going out in these camps, hunting with them. And then I noticed there were terrorists coming into these camps, and the Royal Falconry camps are Al-Qaeda's boardroom. This is where these bad guys come. There are no passport or border controls. And so we were going to go in and get bin Laden, but unfortunately, within minutes of ascending to the office of the CIA director, Leon Panetta's first act in office was to cancel the Rigor program, R-I-G-O-R, a covert CIA program to catch and kill Osama bin Laden in Iran. This was 6 months after Barack Obama was sworn in as president, and Leon Panetta threw a tantrum and canceled Rigor. This was reported by Goldman and Apuzzo, and slightly mischaracterized in the press as targeting Al-Qaeda leaders all over the world, but it was focused only on Iran and bin Laden. And so when we were first ignored and then obstructed and then threatened by 8 CIA officials and warned off going into Iran to get bin Laden, we had passports, visas, everything was ready. The Revolutionary Guards were going to be our bodyguards while we were out doing bona fide scientific research as a cover for catching bin Laden alive for delivery to a tri-state area. When we were shut down by Leon Panetta and others, I began negotiating directly with Iran 6 scenario analyses for the transfer of bin Laden alive and well to coalition forces, and to have him put in a neutral zone. And Iran is on tape agreeing to this. It was all done. It took 3 years to develop this. I had meetings in the Iranian mission at the United Nations. Ambassador Mohammed Kazai organized everything. Bakhsarai was the handler. There were several handlers. Everything was ready. And then I went to Governor Bill Richardson, New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, on December 2nd and 3rd of 2010. He agreed to be the US envoy to receive bin Laden for a transfer to coalition custody. And it turned out that bin Laden had already been moved to Abbottabad, Pakistan in August of 2010. And so—
Why was he transferred there?
He was transferred there because in the 6 scenario analyses that I discussed with Iran, by harboring Osama bin Laden and 100 al-Qaeda leaders, this represents an act of war against the United States. Their nuclear facilities could be bombed and their economy obliterated. So the time moves backwards instead of forwards. And the Iranians didn't want to risk exposing their complicity with John Brennan and others to harbor. You see, John Brennan and Clinton and Biden outsourced the imprisonment of al-Qaeda leaders to Iran. We think of outsourcing as being a commercial activity. They outsourced our military responsibilities to an untrustworthy adversary, Iran. And they did that to save Iran from retaliation for harboring terrorists. And so Iran had no choice in their estimation but to accept the offer of Clinton in lieu of my offer, which was transferred to a neutral zone, because that would have endangered their economy and their nuclear program. So they
Clinton, forgive me, I want to ask you about this. So Clinton actually knew about this, right? She knew that they were willing to just hand him over to us.
Tapes,
And
registered letters, everything to Clinton.
so she knew that they were ready, Iran was ready to give us bin Laden with no real struggle. And
absolutely.
so she decided to have him move to Pakistan for
Yes.
a trophy kill.
They moved him to Abbottabad in August of 2010. And that's our first overhead viewings of bin Laden walking in the garden. Everybody said he was crippled, but he walked down 3 flights of stairs to walk in a garden to advertise his presence, okay? It was an advertisement. Then the gas line was put on the 3rd floor of the Abbottabad complex in August because his wives had to stay sequestered away from the other men. They had to cook in private without the purdah veil. And other things. One of bin Laden's sons said his father was strangely resigned to dying in Abbottabad. So he was held there in a gilded cage, awaiting his trophy kill. He was moved from Mashhad, Iran, into Abbottabad airport, and then moved to this prison complex, the Abbottabad compound. It was not there to protect him. It was there to keep him there, awaiting his appointment with destiny. But the Iranians turned it into a fateful result because they pulled bin Laden out at the last minute, at the 11th hour, after an Iranian agent, a double agent, a Pakistan ISI officer who worked for Iran covertly, provided the DNA evidence to the CIA station chief. Finally, they were convinced it was bin Laden in Abbottabad, and they sent in SEAL Team 6. And Musharraf said he didn't know about the SEAL Team 6 coming in, but they had to let down the radar long enough for the helicopters to come in. And they only told Obama about the SEAL Team 6 kill mission after the radar was put back up and SEAL Team 6 could not go back into Afghanistan. It was then a one-way trip that could not be canceled. You see, we have a witness who witnessed Hillary and Panetta threatening Obama that if he didn't greenlight the bin Laden kill mission, they would expose him in the press and he would never survive politically. And he actually was reluctant to authorize the kill mission. That's why they pulled him off the golf course only after the mission could not be canceled. And so the agent provocateurs, the engineers of all of this were John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. And when they went in there, trusting the Iranians had bin Laden there waiting for them, SEAL Team 6, your son.
He was retired at that time. Actually.
Yes, but the SEAL Team 6, they killed Osama bin Laden's double.
How do we know that?
One of the wives went running towards them before he shot him and said, "Don't shoot, he's a double." I don't know the language she used. And then if you read Cy Hirsch's book, he explains that they threw the body parts over the Hindu Kush mountains. They didn't even save them like they saved the sons of Saddam Hussein in a refrigerated tent, well preserved and with makeup, just to prove that the Wicked Witch was dead. They saved the sons of Saddam Hussein, but they did not save the corpse of Osama bin Laden because it was his double, and it could not handle the scrutiny of DNA testing on the ship.
Okay, so the SEAL team, they knew that it was thrown out of the helicopter.
They learned that it was not bin Laden, and so they threw the body parts over the Hindu Kush mountains. And John Brennan said that the people on the ship were told to keep quiet about the burial at sea, but they all say that they never were told to keep quiet because there was no burial at sea. John Brennan took the lead and made the fake media announcements. He lied to the press when he explained this Muslim burial at sea. It's actually haram. It's forbidden to bury a Muslim at sea unless the body's going to endanger the lives of the crew with disease risk. You know, you can't, because you see in the ocean, the feet, it'll rotate around and the feet will face Mecca. It's haram. You must bury on land with the face facing Mecca. So Brennan, who's a Muslim, you'd think he'd know not to lie about something so obvious. He said it was a Muslim burial at sea. Nonsense. And so this big lie that you see, Biden, Hillary, and Clinton worked this agreement with Iran. They trusted Iran to move bin Laden to Pakistan. He did. He was there. But then they trusted Iran to keep him there. They moved him out back to Iran. And then the communication from Iran to Obama was, hey, we got your neck in a noose. Give us all this money. $152 billion, $2 billion on an airplane pallet was paid out for the secrets I wish to reveal now and to the president under the terms of misprision and treason. That is to say, this is a secret. These are secrets worth $152 billion paid by President Obama. And Vice President Biden paid with the blood of SEAL Team 6 when he had them killed.
So it's blackmail and extortion then.
Blackmail and extortion.
Now,
Iran commandeered.
You have the documents to prove
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Now,
Iran. Yes, sir.
well, I was going to ask you, if you have those documents, are you willing to personally deliver those to President Trump if he were to provide the transportation and the guarantee of safety for you to do that?
Well, I'm not concerned about safety. There's always an invisible hand that protects us, and we're on the winning team. America's on the winning team.
Not one sparrow falls to the ground outside of God's will.
Yes. It would be my pleasure and my honor to bring this material to President Trump. There's a massive amount, terabytes, documents, video, audio. But it needs to go to the president.
I will do everything that I can to get this video in his hands.
It's my only wish.
Alan, I've got a question for you. So that means that SEAL Team 6 was shot down on purpose after the trophy kill to ensure that no dead man can tell no tales.
You were correct. So that President Obama paid bribery of $152 million. Vice President Biden paid with the blood of SEAL Team 6. He spent their blood like currency.
Well, I've got to share something with you. Actually, Charles does. Charles, tell him about the Army Ranger that you talked to that was in the city where they were shot down.
Okay. We lived in Hawaii, and for about a month afterwards, I was in shock. And my wife and I, we went walking on the beach. And in the back of my vehicle, I have a bumper sticker about Ty. And this gentleman came up to me, and he was an Army Ranger that had been injured, and he was recuperating in Hawaii. And he said, "How do you know Chief Petty Officer Woods?" And I says, "Well, I'm his dad." And he says, "Well, I worked with your son." And we became very close. It was part of my healing process, actually, getting to know him. He started coming to our church. His girlfriend started surfing with my daughters, and they ended up getting married. And one of the things that he told me, he says, "I was on the Ranger team that was in that village where SEAL Team 6 was killed." The story was by the Biden-Obama administration that there was this team that was under attack in this village. We're going to die if you don't get someone here really quick. And so they loaded SEAL Team 6 on this slow, vintage Huey helicopter the size of a school bus and slowly got them to the village. Now, they did not request help. They'd been in that village numerous times before. In fact, if someone came, it would actually endanger them. The story was not true. And then usually when a helicopter comes in, it goes zoom right down to the ground, opens up, all the troops go out in seconds, and then boom, the helicopter goes straight up. Well, this was a sitting target, okay, the size of a school bus. It hovered in the air over that village, just waiting to be shot down. And the people hot roped. I've never heard the word hot rope before. That means they each individually lowers down while it was a sitting target. And then apparently it was shot down by one of those weapons that Hillary Clinton illegally sent to Benghazi to give to a terrorist organization the U.S. government used to get rid of our ally who was fighting terrorism. That's Gaddafi.
One of the
And then that weapon ended up over in Afghanistan.
They were Stinger missiles. Thousands upon thousands of them went missing, and Mark Turi was told that he had a small arms covert weapons program going, so that way none of that was ever given to someone, because they could shoot down jetliners just flying by if they wanted to. A child could do it, and a 12-year-old could do it. So these Stinger missiles went through Benghazi and then were given to the people who shot down SEAL Team 6. That was a setup. They were covering their tracks there, and then when they found the serial number on one of the missiles, it is traced back to the CIA from Qatar, from that weapons cache of Stinger missiles. That's why they had to then cover their tracks after people found out that the missiles were from Qatar, and then they could trace back where they came from Hillary through Benghazi. That's why Stevens was back there, to recover those missiles and cover up the evidence. Well, that's at least what he was told. I assume that part of the plan for her was to eliminate everyone there at the Benghazi compound as well.
It's just so wicked. It's hard. It's just so unimaginably evil what these people do.
Dead men don't talk.
Well, Alan,
we'll talk. We will talk.
You have some good news coming up here in the next week and a half.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be released, audio tapes, documents.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing about it and seeing everybody connect the dots, because it's pretty plain to see the people involved, and it's all connected to another crime spree and that's another story, though.
Well, let's just remember that heavy price has been paid for the secrets we are uncovering. And there are millions of people who want to see the truth. And we're going to deliver.
Well, America is a democracy, and for a democracy to work, the people that vote need to know what the truth is. And that is why we have 3 weeks for the people of the United States to get to know the truth. I hope that the media covers this, including the fake media, because the truth has to come out for our democracy to work properly, so people can vote intelligently.
Totally agree. I agree.
All right, Alan, we appreciate your time today. I'm sure this is just the beginning, and we look forward to hearing and seeing what you're going to show to everyone in the future.
It's the beginning, but it's also the beginning of the end for the bad guys.
Woo-hoo.
Anyway,
comes out.
Speak to you soon. Yes, sir.
Have a good day, Alan.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Yes.
Lord bless. Bye-bye.
Here with Alan and Nick. Alan is a Falconer, Alan Parrot, and Nick Noe is did I say your name right?
Just say no, like those commercials.
Nick Noe, Benghazi whistleblower. So thank you for being with me, both of you. I'm going to just start by saying that the Islamic Republic of Iran extorted $152 billion from President Barack Obama in a quid pro quo exchange for Iran's secrecy about the staged trophy kill and bin Laden's return to Iran. So that kind of sets the stage. And I've watched Feathered Cocaine, which I believe is several years old and is a documentary about the international trade of falcons. I did not know about falconry before I came across your movie. And this film is not only about looking at smuggling falcons, which is ranked, by the way, number 4 in the list of the most profitable illegal trades, but it also reveals in an investigative way the context between the trade of falcons and historical events where royal dynasties, institutions like the CIA and the KGB, the oil industry, and Al-Qaeda were involved. So that kind of sets the stage. One sentence that really stuck out that you say is that falconry is the Rosetta Stone for Al-Qaeda, which is a beautiful sentence. So based on what I've said so far,
I apologize for that.
is that a cuckoo clock?
No, I am an ornithologist, but I don't have a single cuckoo clock.
Sorry. Okay, would you like to begin, Alan?
Yes. Thank you for your introduction, and it's great to be here with you, Miriam, and with Nick Noah. Yeah, it all started with falconry. It is the common denominator, and the Royal Falconry camps have been Al-Qaeda's boardroom in the past because there are no passport or border controls. Our Middle East allies spare no expense on their falconry expeditions and camps across Central Asia, and to the point of building their own airports in the center of their hunting territories, so they can land C-130 transport planes with custom hunting cars, with retractable roofs and chairs that electronically go up above the roof, so the royal prince or sheikh can release his falcon from the comfort of a luxurious padded chair on the roof of a Range Rover or Toyota Land Cruiser.
So, I mean, feathered cocaine illustrates your passion, your addiction, quote unquote, for falcons. To simplify things, from my understanding, is that here you are, you come across this person, T2, and he has a connect to Osama bin Laden, but then you kind of realize they're not really interested in capturing Osama bin Laden, despite the fact that there's a figure, a reward, and then you kind of run into some funny business. I mean, of course, I'm simplifying it, but maybe you can take it from there.
Well, okay. As Westerners who were attacked on 9/11 in a barbaric fashion, it's easy to presume our adversaries, our enemies, the terrorists, are. It's easy to presume that they are incapable of being loyal to each other. But in fact, these are very tribal cultures, whether it be the Arabian tribes or Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They have their loyalties. And the Republican and Democratic parties are tribes of sorts. The Saudi ambassador, Prince Bandar, the former Saudi ambassador, used to refer to the Republican and Democrat parties as tribes. And when I first was with Sheikh Zayed, in the UAE president in 1981, the ruler of it wasn't Russell Khema, it wasn't Al Quwain, it was another emirate. He asked me what I was from, being an American. He asked me what my tribe was, and I didn't know what to say. So I said, "Well, I'm a Republican." And we all have our tribal alliances, and we're very loyal to them. And ISIS and Al-Qaeda are loyal to each other. So they don't want to turn in Osama bin Laden because of this strong loyalty. They have their code of honor, and it is a religious code of honor called Islam, which has its military components, strong military components uh, that are very dominant today. But there's another feature that prevents them from turning in bin Laden, and that is one of the great sins in Islam is to help a kafar, kafir, infidel, a non-Muslim, to help a non-Muslim prosecute a Muslim is haram. It's forbidden, and this is absolutely a guarantee to in Islamic doctrine to hellfire. And one of the greatest sins is to help kuffar against a Muslim, and so that even if a Muslim is guilty of something horrible, you cannot, if you are Muslim, you cannot help the kuffar prosecute him.
I totally understand that notion, but I feel what was jarring is that it seemed that the Americans didn't really want to capture him, unless I'm mistaken. And then there's the whole fact that it seems that they killed the body double and not the real Osama bin Laden. Can you clarify that?
Well, the Iranians cooperated with Hillary and Brennan and Biden and a number of other people for the emigration of bin Laden to Abbottabad for the trophy kill. Our side, represented by Biden and Hillary and Brennan, presumed the deal was written in stone. But for the Iranians, that deal was written in the windswept, dry sands of the Middle East, and it evaporated at the 11th hour before SEAL Team 6 arrived to kill bin Laden, who was in Abbottabad advertising his presence as he walked every day up and down the stairs like a yo-yo when people claimed he was debilitated and required the presence of a physician who was looking after him. He was so ill, and yet somehow he made this Herculean pilgrimage every day down cement stairs with no soft carpeting and padding, hard cement stairs, 3 flights, so that he could pace in the garden with his cane, 6'6", and cast a shadow that can be calculated to represent a man 6'6" by our overhead UAV, our overhead viewing. It was a setup. And
yeah, go ahead.
And while we played chess, I mean, Hillary and Brennan and Biden and these guys are not Arabists. Even Brennan was not, because he was distracted by the glitter when he was in various places in the Middle East as the CIA station chief, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't guard and develop his critical analysis mind. He was swept away by the romance of Islam and Arabia. And he failed to use his critical mind to realize that the Iranians are a complex, ancient culture. While we play checkers, they play chess. Oh, excuse me, no, they don't play chess. They invented chess. And they pulled bin Laden out at the last minute, after the DNA was provided to the CIA station chief by Pakistan ISI officers who are Iranian agents. That is the weak link that was missed by John Brennan and by Seymour Hersh, a great Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. His facts, as he reported them in Killing bin Laden, are perfect, beyond reproach, unimpeachable. His analysis of those facts are erroneous because he failed to realize that the two Pakistan ISI officers, one who reported bin Laden to the station chief and the other who supplied the blood sample, he failed to recognize that they were operating as Iranian agents, double agents. And they were gray men, retired Pakistan ISI, so that Musharraf would not be blamed. He had plausible deniability built in, baked into the cake. The Pakistan Prime Minister Musharraf can say, well, these were retired ISI. I had nothing to do with it.
So if it was the body double and it comes to light, why not cop to the error? Why cover it up? I mean, that might sound like a silly question or an obvious answer.
In the game of, oh yes, Nick, what were you going to say?
I think I might have the answer to that. If they have an error, then people ask, how did the error occur? And the error occurred because they had a transfer from Iran to Pakistan with bin Laden. When they did that, people would say, wait a minute, how did that happen? And then when they find out how that happened, then they'll realize that he'd been in Iran the whole time, and we had the power to do this at any time, to go get him, capture, kill, anytime. And I'll let Alan go ahead.
Yeah, Nick, 100% correct. You're 100% correct. And also let us remember there is precedent in Iran with Jimmy Carter and the helicopters that, do you remember, when they were going to release the hostages? They were going to recover the American hostages. That was a failed mission that was lethal to the political career of Jimmy Carter. And so that if it were publicly known that this mission was a fraud, the cascade effect, the political blowback on the U.S. administration would have been unsustainable, and President Barack Obama would not have survived. He was an unwitting victim of his own staff. This was not a mutiny. This was a takeover by Hillary, Brennan, and Biden, who all thought they knew better than President Obama. He was very reluctant to greenlight this operation.
Why is that?
I don't know all the details. We have a witness, a CIA man who was there when Hillary Clinton and Leon Panetta was threatening President Obama and telling him that if he would not greenlight the kill mission, not survive politically. They had an argument. They blew a gasket.
Can you explain a little bit about what happened to SEAL Team 6 as a result?
along the way of researching everything and coming in contact with witnesses, I'm not just reading things online. I'm actually I found firsthand witnesses. So the Army Rangers that were in the city that they were supposedly going to rescue, when they went there, they had never called for help. As a matter of fact, they were told not to go there when they're en route, and they still went there, or at least the woman that was overhead in a plane was saying that basically there's no reason for them to be there. And on top of that, they had received reports from over a week in advance, about a week in advance, that the Taliban were planning on shooting down aircraft, American aircraft, in that exact same location. So they knew about that ahead of time. Okay, so they had people set up with the Stinger missiles, the MANPAD, I think they're called that, right? So, and then there are also 6 IEDs set up below for whenever they landed. So this was a pre-planned attack. They knew about them going there. So the real question is, how did they know that the SEAL team would be going there and they would not be called in? They didn't even get called there, and then they arrived there, and that's how they got shot down. So it makes you wonder what actually happened there, because they weren't called for help. They don't call them for help. They showed up to help. They knew that there was going to be an air attack with one of these missiles that they have. I mean, this is all documented. I'll give you the documents for it. And Charles Strange gave them to me. So another inconsistency with this is that they told the families that the bodies were burned so badly that they had to cremate them. And they made a mistake. They gave Charles Strange, they gave him his autopsy report on a disc, and he saw photos of his son. He was not burnt like that. So they lied to him. What were they lying about? You just got to start asking questions, okay? So at this point, a lot of things that are completely outside of the norm. Normally, SEALs don't go in Chinook helicopters like that. They go in fast-moving helicopters for egress and I can't remember. So to go in quickly and leave quickly, all right? So this is completely out of the ordinary. And then not to mention they knew that there's going to be an attack in that same spot, and they had read the cables about this. So I also heard, I don't know if this is true, I'll have to see if I can find documentation that they switched out the pilots. There were Afghans on there, and they switched them out and had different ones flying at that time. So maybe someone was just good enough to get him there to get shot down as part of the plan. I don't know, but I certainly have a lot of questions. And, so it's the fact that that happened. And then there's someone named Kesterson, Scott, well, forgive me, not Kesterson. I don't know why I goofed on that. It's because they have very unique names. His name is Tim. You know him, Alan. Tim, what is his name? He's Timmerman. Ken Timmerman. Ken Timmerman.
The author?
Yes,
Yeah.
Ken Timmerman wrote a book about this. He has I forget what page it's on. Let me find the page really quick. So
Is it the page that was sent to Ryan Artig?
Yeah, that's right. It's
I just read it before getting on the phone with you. Yeah.
What page is this?
About
220, page 225 of his book called Dark Forces. On there, he explains, and he is very thorough with his investigations, all right? He explains that they came from a Qatari's weapons cache. It was turned over in early 2011, initially intended for anti-Gaddafi forces. And so they delivered those to the Taliban, is believed, in early 2012. So at that time, we had a covert weapons program, and Mark Turry was running it. And Hillary Clinton told him, "You're not doing that anymore." And it's small arms. She told him, "You're not doing that anymore. I am." And then she took over and started selling weapons with her and her friends. And she's the head of the State Department. That's so obviously the State Department doesn't sell weapons. She would have never been authorized to take over a CIA program. She's Secretary of State. And then she gave it to her friends, just willy-nilly. You guys go ahead and sell these things. And then they sold Stinger missiles. And the rumor is that people objected to this, and because the Stinger missiles, I mean, sure, whatever, send some weapons through. They're probably their mentality. But then the Stinger missiles were an issue because those can shoot down jetliners. You know, a very weakly trained person, I don't know, like a 14-year-old, 13-year-old kid, if they were strong enough, could put this on their shoulder, point it, and shoot down a jetliner. That's how sophisticated these weapons are. So, so Hillary decided to sell those, and she sold them through Benghazi. She sold them. That's where they were running the weapons through originally, right? And it's my belief that they had to shoot down SEAL Team 6 as a warning to the others that if they talk about the Bin Laden raid, then it'll be them, or they could have mistakenly thought it was them. Many people die, more than 6.
It's just called SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, it's just called SEAL Team 6. There are several teams within sub-teams within SEAL Team 6 that do specialty jobs, and they'll be used for certain parts of missions or certain missions, whatever. Just tactical things that they need for specific missions. You know, they got a specialty in this, they got a specialty in this. They go after and do their job and come home. So there are a lot of questions about that. As I said, they were not asked for support. They did not ask for support, and they still went there. Then they had reports that there were going to be someone there to shoot down American aircraft, and that there was tons of Taliban waiting for them, and they had IEDs waiting for them as well. So
ostensibly, isn't it Americans killing Americans?
I think it's fair to make that conclusion with the assessment. You know, it's a fair assessment.
And then you have, as of late, this Rob O'Neill man who's come forth that had an article in the Daily Mail stating that no, he did indeed kill Osama, and then it was others said that he's lying. That's a
right.
fairly recent.
Yeah, they were interviewed. There were things written by several news places. One of them said that, you know, basically it wasn't appreciated they talked in the first place because SEALs don't talk about, no matter what the circumstance, they don't talk about what they've done and what they're going to do in most cases. So the fact that he came out and said that was, you know, against their code of ethics in the first place, and he was publicly, well, there was letters written and admonished about it. Like, so then there's someone else that had also claimed to be on the raid, and he said that they did not even recognize Bin Laden. Bin Laden is 6'5" tall, very tall Arab man, right? Very tall. And he looks like Bin Laden. How can you miss him? They said, we didn't recognize him. What do you mean you didn't recognize him? He's America's most wanted for a decade, and you don't know what he looks like? It's probably one of the reasons they joined the military. Are you kidding me? I mean, because they saw that, and they wanted, you know, they're patriotic, and they want to serve their country, and they know that one day they'll probably come across him. I'm sure that's in their mind. And then they don't recognize him? I don't know.
In the notion that the body double was killed and not the real Osama, is that something that came from you, Alan?
Well, yes, because I have a confirmed delivery of a letter to Leon Panetta before Abbottabad warning him against a trophy kill in Pakistan. I warned him against moving bin Laden out of Iran to Pakistan for a trophy kill. And there is a witness to confirm the delivery of that letter to the CIA director.
And so someone like Rob O'Neill recently coming out, that seems like an attempt to discredit you and discredit what you're presenting.
Rob O'Neill is a person who can be expected to continue his storyline, because otherwise the whole house of cards comes falling down. And so Rob O'Neill is a good bet for the opposition. There are some anomalies I'm noticing about Mr. O'Neill. He was contracted as a talking head on Fox News, which is generally conservative. And these contracts tend to be exclusive. And yet Rob O'Neill is leveraging his attacks against the president from CNN, which brings into question his genuine political loyalties at a time when he's being weaponized to be the tip of the spear against the president. These are just questions I have. You know, he could be a lovely person, but I am suspicious when there are two people claiming to have shot bin Laden, one saying he held bin Laden's head in his hand and posed for a photograph, and the other one saying he didn't recognize the man that he shot. You know, the one who didn't recognize the man that he shot sounds like a man who shot a double and who's reluctant to admit that he shot a double and that he was very distressed at what he saw. That would be my deductive analysis of his statements, but he's the only one that can tell us the truth behind his statements. But to your question, I'm in possession of a letter and correspondence to prove that Leon Panetta, I warned him against moving bin Laden out of Iran to Pakistan for a trophy kill. Those are the words I used. It is a reasonably long letter. I think it's 2 or 3 pages. And Leon Panetta did not heed my warning. He used my letter as a roadmap through the foggy battlefield.
Now, when this information was presented on the last day of the American Priority Conference, since then, it's been Sunday, that happened Sunday, today is Friday. Right away, Alex Jones and others disputed, said this is phony story, without, at least from my understanding, speaking to you or maybe writing you off just because you're a Sikh and you wear a turban, which, I mean, this is America. We embrace each other's differences. So I found that strange too, for someone who says that they're a patriot. Why not even give you the benefit of the doubt and speak? Did they try to speak with you?
No. And I love Alex Jones. I did listen to part of his broadcast. It was about 3 hours. I did keep hearing a mantra, the man's wearing a wizard suit. I thought it was a bit peculiar because, you know, there are 1.8 billion Muslims. Perhaps half of them wear robes. The Pope wears a robe. You know, in Pakistan, they wear shalwar kameez. All the men wear shalwar kameez. And I'm a Sikh, the 5th largest religion in the world, maybe 50 million people. And I'm considered to be a devout Sikh. I dress like a Sikh. I look like a Sikh. But to Alex Jones, I was a man in a wizard outfit. You know, God bless him. I can forgive ignorance. But I think that he might want to look a little deeper than skin deep when he's reporting on something this significant.
Absolutely.
And furthermore, personal attacks detract from the message. The message is not the messenger. I'm just the mailman.
Yeah.
And I'm really unimportant and irrelevant here. Whether however I look or whatever my religion is irrelevant. I have an unusual way of working, and I have a lot of information which cannot be shared in public. It's illegal for me to share it in public. There's a proscribed protocol called misprision of treason, which I think has never been invoked.
Yeah,
To
you say that in the document.
yes. And so, Alex Jones, if he wants to get a message across, I think he would be well advised to drop the wizard suit stuff.
Well, I also appreciate Alex. I'm not one to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I mean, anyone who listens to Alex knows that he has some pretty far out notions, whether I agree with them or not. Many of them I do agree, but he's pretty out there as far as hyperdimensional entities or aliens or so. And to engage in ad hominem attacks is what we're trying to fight against.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. But, the other thing is, I think when a person makes an assessment, see, Alex Jones and a lot of these people haven't even listened to the tapes or looked at the first of many documents and tapes. Huh? And they come to a final conclusion, and then they get on top of the rooftop and they're shouting their opinion. But do you really want to know what these people are like? They're like a blind man feeling the tail of an elephant, and another man's feeling the leg, and another man's feeling the trunk, and they're trying to describe it. The only person who sees this elephant is going to be President Trump. And the elephant is a Democrat elephant called Joe Biden and John Brennan and Leon Panetta. There's quite a few of these elephants that only the president will see under the terms of misprision of treason. Everybody else is talking about the tail or the nose or the hoof. And that's the way it has to be until the president has the full spectrum of information to use as he sees fit as the commander-in-chief, because his predecessor was commandeered and commanded by the Iranians. And this shall never happen again in this administration. It won't let it happen once or ever.
Let us talk a little bit about Joe Biden and Brian Ettinger, his confidant and attorney. If you can speak a little about Biden's role and where is Brian Ettinger presently?
I don't know. I think he's I don't know exactly where he is. I suspect he might be in Texas. What was your question about Brian?
Well, yeah, what is Joe Biden's role in this, given Brian Ettinger's the fact he's his confidant and that he was sending him on a mission that wasn't, from my understanding, on the books?
Well, in the words of Congressman Curt Weldon, the vice president sends Joe Biden on quote unquote secret missions without the State Department involved.
You mean Ettinger, right, Alan?
I'm sorry, Ettinger, pardon me. Yes, Ettinger is sent on secret missions without the State Department involved.
Curt, it's Alan Parrot.
I'm going to put you on the phone with myself and Brian Ettinger. I told you who Brian is. He's a good friend and a trusted partner of mine. He has access. He doesn't get paid. He does this as a favor for Biden. with the Interagency Organized Crime Task Force that works with our agencies.
Yes.
But he's also very close to Biden on a number of issues. He was his former staffer. I
Excellent.
trust him with my life, and we're business partners. So I'm going to have you, I've told him about you. You don't have to go through all the background about who you are.
Okay.
But I want you to tell him the most recent situation, and then Brian and I are going to talk about it, because we're going up to New York together. So we'd like to put you on speakerphone now and introduce you.
Yes.
Alan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Let me put the volume up. All right, you've got to speak loudly. This is Brian Ettinger. Yes, sir. How are you?
Very well, sir. How are you, Brian?
Good. Speak very loud, Alan, so we can hear you. We're in a car. Curt told me about, I guess, the latest incident was with Governor Richardson, and he went through your background and who you are and the people that you previously contacted, and he indicated that you were going to try to get Susan Collins and Lieberman united together to go in and see to brief the president or the vice president about the situation.
You are correct.
And I understand you're into the preservation of falcons. I'm sure you do know most of the royal members of the royal family, because that's what they hunt with, is falcons, as well as Ben Laden used to hunt with falcons. Still does.
Well, sir, I worked exclusively for President Sheikh Zayed, the late president of the United Arab Emirates. I lived with him and his family for 20 years. I also trained falcons for the Saudi crown prince before he became King Abdullah. Yes, falconry is the Rosetta Stone for Al-Qaeda. I met Victor Boot in Sheikh Zayed's falconry camps, and recently, between November 2004 and up until recently, my team members have met Osama bin Laden 6 times inside Iran. We have repeatedly notified the U.S. government and only received, first we were ignored, then we were obstructed, and then we were threatened.
That doesn't surprise me. There's a friend of mine who's an international hunter, and he hunts with falcons with the royal family of the UAE, and his name is Saeed Khan Karacha.
Yes.
I don't know if you know Saeed, but he takes them in the Himalayas to go this mountain goat. They go hunting with the royal family there.
Yes.
And he told me about a year ago that, because he has a house also in Quetta, he told me that he knew recently that bin Laden was in northern Iran, and that he's an American citizen, and told people at the embassy, and they ignored him like the plague. I haven't told you this, but on my most recent trip to Kuwait, I was with my 2 closest friends there, Sheikh Mohammed, who's the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and former U.S. Ambassador, and Sheikh Saud, who was the ambassador during Desert Storm.
Yes.
And it was George Bush, the father's closest friend in the Middle East.
Yes.
And he's a very close friend of mine, and we were having a private dinner with his son Noah, who's another really close friend of mine. And we got to talking about bin Laden. I said, Sheikh Saud, where do you think he is? He said, oh, Curt. He said, there's no doubt, he's in Iran. Yeah, I just told Curt, I said, no, the better way of doing it, if Susan Collins and Lieberman are on board, I wouldn't go see Obama, I'd go see Biden. And Brian can arrange that. Brian can arrange that directly, Alan.
Here's the problem, sir. We have identified with documentation 3 mechanisms used by the Bush administration to covertly engineer bin Laden's house arrest inside Iran. We have identified 2 mechanisms used by this administration to continue the legacy. And Hillary Clinton's fingerprints are all over this, and Leon Panetta's fingerprints are all over this. We will have tremendous opposition.
Yeah, because I told Curt that he is being protected by us. We don't really want to get him. We want him under the radar screen because he basically made a deal that he's not going to hit us here in the U.S.
Well, that's quite a mouthful of marbles right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a lot of illegal stuff right there, to my understanding. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but we have oversight control protocols in our government. The Senate Intelligence Committee is the successor to the Church Commission. Its purpose is to have oversight control over the CIA and the FBI. And we have a system of checks and balances. And when a person subverts the system of checks and balances, they go down a slippery slope. And at the bottom of that slope is the big T word that nobody wants to hear, treason. And Joe Biden sent his attorney on secret missions without the State Department involved. The most recent of which, according to Curt Weldon, was to Pakistan. Before January 6, 2011, he went to Pakistan. Osama bin Laden arrived in Pakistan in August of 2010.
Mm.
This raises many questions.
And as far as proof that you've provided, I think there were 2 calls with Curt, the congressman. Is it representative of Pennsylvania, Curt Weldon?
Yes, yes.
And Brian Edinger?
Yes.
And is there any other evidence in your possession to implicate Joe Biden?
The president's going to get everything.
Okay. But just for the people that might have a question of when will they get this
The evidence is in a safe place.
Okay.
And the president will receive everything.
Okay. Do you want to say anything to that, Nick? Do you have anything to add?
I know that Alan is truthful because he's been kind enough to share some things that I will not share with you right now.
Maybe take a moment now to just clarify, I don't know how it started, that you are not a CIA whistleblower. We said it the other day, but if just on record, you can reiterate that.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because that's caused no end of misconceptions and irritation to me, and about me and to me. I've never been paid by the CIA. I've never been hired by the CIA. I've never been paid by any government, foreign or domestic. I've never worked for any government. Even when I was a Falconer for Sheikh Zayed, I was his friend. I was a guest. And he was like a father to me. That's much better than being an employee in the Middle East. You're like a piece of furniture, and you never know when you're going to be, someone's going to
replace you. Replace the couch.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The Diwan, it's the Diwan El-Amiri. So, yeah, I mean, and Sheikh Zayed, I've got to tell you, he was magnificent. What a great leader he was. A true Bedouin Arab desert leader. And his work, I'm telling you this truthfully, is going to last for generations. The things he's done for the UAE and the region, and he was so democratic towards people, and his majlis was just magnificent. The people would come and go in all shapes and sizes, and he helped everybody. But he did occasionally make bad judgment calls, but I criticized him, and he was so receptive and always wanted to improve. So he was a lot different than people like Saddam and all these other guys. But I'm sorry, I went a bit loud.
I was just establishing that you're not a CIA.
Oh yeah. I'm a Falconer. I was there playing with birds. I had a choice to get a PhD at Cornell. I was a terrible student. I was not a good student because I have dyslexia, and I can't stand I don't read books and stuff. And I decided I can go to the Middle East and train falcons, and that's what I did. But I was always in the right place at the right time, kind of like that song by Dr. John. Do you know that song?
I don't know if I do.
Only his, I think it goes in the wrong place at the right. It's a great song from the 60s and 70s. You're too young to, I guess, to know about these things, but I was always in the right place at the right time. And I genuinely loved everybody, even the bad ones. I could find a spark of goodness in them to like, and then find some way to resonate with them and then forklift them into a nice place, and sometimes influence them in a nice way. So I treated everything very philosophically. I was not driven towards any partisan purpose or political purpose. That was boring, just totally boring. I've always been interested in the falcons. And then I noticed Osama bin Laden was using falconry techniques when he attacked us. Because he's an obsessive falconer.
So in your film, you say that at any time he would have, or when he went hunting, he would have at least 5 falcons with him.
Yeah. It's some Arab sheikhs and princes have hundreds of falcons that are trained. They were actually trained better in the old days, because one guy would catch a falcon, he would give it as a gift. They call hadiyah, a special gift to the prince or the sheikh, and then he would go hunting with him for the season. He'd sleep with the falcon on a wukar, a perch at his head at night, and the falcon would get to be very tame. But now the sheikhs and princes with the petrodollars, they buy so many falcons, one man has to train 4 or 5 that he never caught. And so they don't lavish the same kind of detailed care they used to in the old days. It's more industrial scale today, unfortunately. But it's a great tradition. It's the bone and marrow of Arab culture is falconry, along with Arabian horses and Salukis and so many wonderful things. But Osama bin Laden, yeah, he was a passionate falconer, as so many Arab leaders are today.
Okay, so we've established you're not a CIA whistleblower.
No,
And is there anything else that was misconstrued, that to set the record straight? I think there was something with the dates.
I know this sounds like a minor thing, but it felt like fingernails going across the blackboard. One of the journalists said, I had done some things I regretted in my life, but I'm making up for it. Something like that, she said. And my whole philosophy is to always take the high road and to make lemonade out of the lemons and find the silver lining and look at it philosophically. And I had to do that in very difficult, dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are very difficult, I would examine the texture of the experience and observe it instead of participate in it. And so I learned philosophically how to prepare myself so that I would not suffer too much over there. And because taking the high road is hard, it's difficult.
It sure is. Not enough people do that.
But the benefits are guaranteed. But yeah, that was hurtful when they said that, and I corrected it in writing to them.
Okay.
And nothing else. I mean, I haven't really paid that much attention to the media. I'm sure there are other people saying other things, but that's what we do, right? We make mistakes when we say things. So I'm sure people are making mistakes, and it's okay. Because see, look, I'm just the mailman. Who cares about the mailman? What we need to do is to deliver information, actionable intelligence to the president,
Yes.
let him make the decisions, and let the heads roll.
Okay, I'm gonna look at my notes. So Curt Weldon, he, as I stated earlier, was for a Republican for congressman for Pennsylvania. When he wanted to launch into an investigation, basically he was harassed. His daughter house was raided. The investigation was launched by Robert Mueller. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can, forever. But specifically, what do you want me to talk about?
Just how his life turned upside down when he dared to get involved. He says it in one of the tapes that he suspects that his daughter was harassed, or the house was raided as a result of getting involved.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. First of all, you have to realize who is Curt Weldon. He suffered privations as a congressman to the point where he slept in his congressional offices on a cot. And he had to wake up every morning and get a shower and get ready and have breakfast before his staff arrived. And he was very ashamed of this because he couldn't afford an apartment with his family responsibilities and other things. In his dedication to his work, he went through that. That was hard for him, and he established himself as one of our most articulate speakers on the Hill, who could build bridges between left and right like nobody else. Curt Weldon was magnificent in that role, and without peer. Then, with his oratory skills, he promised me that he was going to ask my questions that I wrote to him in a note and gave him on the day we met in his office about Mohammed al-Qahtani, the detainee in Gitmo, who was a falconer, a bin Laden's falconer, and he was also a falconer for a Middle East head of state, an ally. And so Curt was going to ask questions about an ally's falconer who also worked for Osama.
And this is what year? Sorry, Alan. What? Just to establish a timeline.
I think there's a in the letter you have, it says the date of that meeting with the congressman. It might have been 2006.
June 30th, 2006.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm there with Dr. David Ellis.
Yes.
And
I wanted to ask who David Ellis was. That was one of my questions.
He was on my board of directors doing wildlife conservation, you see. And when we set up the program to go in and catch bin Laden, Dr. Ellis is the world's greatest published scientist on golden eagles and cranes. And so we were going to study golden eagles in the mountains with telemetry radio transmitters on them so that we could track the golden eagles, but also find bin Laden's falcons from 100-mile distance. You know that whole story, right? Okay. So Dr. Ellis was the researcher who was making all this possible. And so Dr. Ellis was with me with Curt Weldon, and we were poring over maps of Iran and giving him information about bin Laden in Iran. And that's when Curt gave the green light to support us going into Iran to catch bin Laden. You know about that.
Yes.
And
go ahead.
What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to reiterate some of the points. Go continue.
Yeah. So then Curt said that he was going to subpoena Don Rumsfeld and I think Dick Cheney, as I recall, to ask them questions about bin Laden in Iran. And that was the kiss of death, to ask about Mohammed al-Qahtani and Rumsfeld and Cheney about bin Laden's house arrest. And Curt is very open in the way he talks. He advertised this. He told a lot of people that he was going to subpoena them, and he told people about our meeting.
Yeah.
Meetings. We had 2 meetings that day, and so his daughter's house was raided.
Yes.
And the reasons they used to justify the raid, which were completely made up, Mueller had possession of those reasons for months, but he pulled the trigger at the critical moment of Curt Weldon's reelection campaign, where it guaranteed that he lost his reelection. And the polls guaranteed he was going to win his congressional seat, but the actions of Mueller, and Hillary was involved too. Curt told me, it was his statement to me, that Hillary was involved with his attorneys without his knowledge. And so he was, they put a gag order on him, which is, of course, what they would do to our most articulate, well-spoken orator in Congress. I mean, of course, there are other people who are contenders, and I don't know them all, but this is a guy who can talk, just King's English better than anybody, and get right to the meat and potatoes of things. And he's a valuable Republican. He's a valuable asset and ally for this party. And so Mueller had to have his head on a platter, because
where is he now? Sorry, where is Curt Weldon now?
He's in Pennsylvania.
But he's not in office. He's not.
Oh no, they kneecapped him.
Yeah.
They kneecapped him.
So you say also that you possess Qahtani's Gitmo interrogation logs. So
yeah.
He is currently still in Gitmo?
I believe so. Yeah. I've spoken to his attorney in New York extensively. What is her name? She keeps flying up and down to Gitmo, and I believe he's still there. Gita Gutierrez, I think, is her name.
Congressman Weldon explained several times that as the incoming chairman of the House Armed Services Committee in 2006, he was pre-briefed with top secret field intelligence about Osama bin Laden living inside Iran. I'm just reading your notes.
Yeah.
And Congressman Weldon revealed how the information that you provided during your June 30th, 2006 meetings was identical in every detail to hard-won classified materials about which he was already briefed.
Yes.
He said he couldn't tell you at the time because it was classified, and then he was shocked at how you and your NGO, the Union for the Conservation of Raptors, were able to learn all the things that you told him.
Yes.
Moving on, hopefully, Nick, if you can hear us, come back. I'm sorry, just give me a moment. Then I come across involvement with Governor Bill Richardson, who agreed to be part of your U.S. convoy, right? To receive Osama bin Laden from Iran, conditional upon Leon Panetta's no objection to Osama bin Laden's transfer, but obviously that didn't happen, right?
Yes, Leon shut it down.
And is there a recording of that as well? Is there?
I don't believe I recorded the evening with in the residence, but telephone calls were recorded. Yes.
Is Brian Ettinger still close buddy with Joe Biden?
I haven't the slightest. I
Yeah.
haven't communicated with Ettinger ever since he told me to shut up and that he'd sue me if I talked about the things I'm telling you tonight and that are in that document and
So
the tapes.
that was
Hmm?
the last many years ago.
Yes, you'll see in the document you have, there's the threatening letter from Ettinger where he denies saying the things that he said on the tape. And he said he never said that he'd introduced me to Vice President Biden, and it's quite clear that both he and Curt Weldon were recommending that they were setting up a meeting with Joe Biden.
And for people who I mean, people have asked me, or just to play devil's advocate, if people are like, well, why now? This happened many years ago. Why is it happening?
Before,
Yeah.
yes, I recognize your question, but if I could just finish
Please.
to clarify a point.
Yes.
In the tape and transcript that you have, I was planning to go to President Obama with Susan Collins and Lieberman. That was my intention. And Brian Ettinger says, I understand you're planning to go to President Obama if you can get Lieberman and Collins on board. And then Ettinger himself proposed, no one else proposed this. He said, but I think you really should go to Joe Biden. He's much better. In so many words, he said that. So Joe Biden wasn't even on my radar screen. And then Curt Weldon interrupted and he said, and Brian can make that happen. In so many words, Curt said, and Brian can take you to Joe Biden. So very clearly, that conversation was to get me to Joe Biden, on which basis I wrote a non-disclosure agreement where Brian Ettinger he signed it, where he promises to take me to his influential contacts. That's Joe Biden. That's the man we were talking about.
Yes.
The non-disclosure agreement, which Brian Ettinger signed after that conversation, promises to take me to Joe Biden. But we couldn't use the word Joe Biden because of the sensitivity of the subject, you see.
Okay.
So you have to look at the non-disclosure agreement and see the very clever wording we're using to describe the vice president, because that's hard copy. Because all of this was supposed to be very discreet. Whereas Ettinger has developed certain relationships with influential people and entities which are of interest to and which may be of value to Parrot and UCR, hereafter referred to as contacts. Where Parrot and UCR desire to receive introductions to Ettinger's designated contacts and other relationships to further their respective interests. Where Ettinger is willing to provide certain assistance in promoting or possibly facilitating contact between Perot, UCR, and his own contacts so that Parrot and UCR may establish relationships or business ties with said contacts which may be of value. And you see, the business interest was the Bin Laden reward,
Yeah.
which is mentioned in here.
Yes.
And it says because I was reporting Bin Laden to the president, presumably, but he wanted to take me to Biden, you see, in order to take Bin Laden into custody and receive the reward. Parrot understand, in order for Ettinger to approach and possibly interest his contacts in developing relations with Parrot, Parrot must disclose to Ettinger very detailed information, knowledge, expertise. Basically, he wanted me to give him our evidence on Bin Laden, because in regards to Osama bin Laden and or other senior Al Qaeda leaders, internationally known terrorists, collectively referred to as UBL. So this was to include Zawahiri, who's still in Iran now. Anyway, basically, this was a NDA with Brian Ettinger about going to the vice president, about bin Laden and Zawahiri and others in Iran. And it followed the timeline sequence. It followed our January 6th call. We weren't doing a contract to meet the president of Belarus or Timbuktu. It was strictly dealing with bin Laden, Al Qaeda, and an upcoming meeting that was promised with the vice president. But it was a cattle run. He was taking me away from Obama and putting me to Biden because Biden was the puppet master in that administration. I'm telling you, Obama was clean on this.
Okay. And here there's this Edinger, well, yeah, because he's being protected by us. We don't really want to get him. You want him under the radar screen because he basically made a deal that he's not gonna hit us here in the U.S.
Yes.
Can you explain this a little further? This and Edinger saying this.
Yes, I have documents and other materials on this.
Okay.
It is a modus vivendi, which is a fancy word for a peace treaty. John Brennan and Biden and Clinton, they outsourced our system to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, in all fairness, it began with the Bush administration, but the common denominator is John Brennan. John Brennan was active during Tora Bora and after. So he is the common thread. All roads lead to John Brennan. So, I cannot really hold the Bush administration at fault to the degree that I can calibrate the compass of blame against John Brennan.
And just to reiterate that you say you have actionable connections between Biden, Clinton, Brennan, including foreign players to keep Osama bin Laden on ice in Iran. And the other day you had said, dead or alive, bin Laden is in Iran.
Yes. So, and to the extent that in my scenario analyses with the Iranians that went on for 3 years, and which actually continued beyond 3 years with our government and with Middle East government, I described the need to have Iran transfer all terrorists, dead or alive, so that those who are in Iran that are dead will be transferred to a prison managed by coalition forces. So, dead or alive, they all go there. Some will go to a graveyard, some will go to the prison. But they will go there to stay for as long as they are required to stay there.
In your opinion, is Osama dead or alive?
Either way, the transaction was led to the payments that went to Iran.
Let me explain, if I may. Yeah. If he's alive, he will be killed before he's delivered. If he's dead, he will be dead. If he's alive, he will be dead. They will not allow him to leave Iran alive. And that's okay.
I believe that he's alive, or alive or dead in Iran. However, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, it does technically. That's a later story. We'll resolve that later. What matters is that the payments were for that transaction that happened, that went to Iran.
Okay.
There's no way the Iranians will let him out alive. It's not possible.
Okay.
You know, we have to stop thinking in a Western jurisprudence. Iran is an Islamic country with Islamic Sharia law, and they have their own way of doing things, and we're not going to change that, culturally speaking. The regimes change now and then, but they will resist being controlled by any outside force. And even though they're suffering greatly and their economy is in trouble, they have a capability of resisting. It's really quite amazing that they have manipulated our government. They've capitalized at every opportunity. They're doing things to survive that are very clever. And I'm certainly not advocating for them, but what I'm doing is just describing the reality, just the raw truth. There is absolutely no way they will allow bin Laden out alive. And the same is probably true for Zawahiri. And if we want to move forward and put this behind us in the rearview mirror, we have to accept the possibility that they will execute these people before they give them to us.
If there is an acknowledgement that the first attempt was a body double, right?
Well,
There isn't a universal acceptance of this.
Yes, the Iranians, they have their interests, and it's very complex. And
Yeah.
we will not be, we have to be very careful to resist the temptation to be colonial in the way we presume they will behave in a way that's logical in our context. It's you know what Mark Twain said about East and West will never meet, or that I forget how it goes, but we have to be satisfied with these guys showing up dead. We'll get some alive. We will get some of these guys alive from Iran, but bin Laden knows too much.
In Iran, is it more commonplace to speak about the fact that the body was not the real Osama?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Is this notion that they didn't kill the real Osama more accepted in the Middle East? Are there others who
No. The reason it's a very limited circle of people that know about this.
Okay, I bring it up. I don't know if you're.
It's not well known. This is not well known because I communicated. Oh, it's difficult to put it in words because it's so easily misunderstood. But I gave them the roadmap through the foggy battlefield.
Okay.
They had no other options but to follow my map. And when Hillary and Brennan got involved, they had the same roadmap that Ahmadinejad had. All of these people had my roadmap. And they did what was irresistible for each party. I provided scenario analyses with consequences. What will happen if you do this? I had literally had it worked out to risk benefit on this analysis. On another analysis, risk benefit. So they could go through these these potentialities of, well, what if they do this with Osama, or this, or this, or this? And the final conclusion, the best analysis, was for bin Laden and these guys to be transferred to a neutral zone managed by coalition forces, a project that some people know about. And it is the logical scenario analyses. But Hillary and Brennan and Clinton chose the worst of the scenario analyses because they wanted to protect Iran from sanctions and retaliation on their nuclear facilities. So these were all things that I provided to all people on both sides of the fence, and they chose the wrong one. They chose the wrong one for the sake of their nuclear facilities and some commercial things that one of these people, more than one of these people, were involved in with Iran. And I never dreamed. And because of one of these scenario analyses involved moving bin Laden to Pakistan, I wrote a letter to Leon Panetta, which we confirmed received. We have written confirmation and tape confirmation that Leon Panetta received my warning not to move bin Laden from Iran to Pakistan for a trophy kill. And so the scenario analysis, the bad one that was chosen by Hillary and Biden and Brennan, it was unimaginable to me that they would make the wrong choice. I gave the best choice. In fact, the Iranians chose the best choice, which was to move al-Qaeda's leaders to a neutral zone. They agreed to it. It was turnkey. That's why we went to Bill Richardson. Everything was ready to move bin Laden to a neutral zone. But Leon Panetta told Bill Richardson, forget about bin Laden in Iran, because he had already chosen the worst of my 6 scenario analyses. You see? So it was my roadmap through the foggy battlefield. They made the wrong route choice. They made the wrong choice. A child wouldn't make that choice. Only a person who has their hand in the cookie jar and who wants political gain would make the bad choice. But it wasn't even in my vocabulary, my imagination, that they would make that choice. I thought they would make the choice that is in the interest of American security, international security, to drive the wooden stake through the heart of the vampire, to put an end to al-Qaeda and bin Laden and Zawahiri and all these people, and to put them in a prison forever. That was turned down.
So is it silly to ask that if they knew arguably that it was a double and then they kind of just abandoned the mission to get the real Osama bin Laden, what purpose is he serving for them?
Extortion.
Say again?
Let's characterize it a little more precisely.
Okay.
They learned bin Laden, the man who was killed was not bin Laden, but that he was a double.
Okay.
And then they learned bin Laden was in Iran alive. And then Iran was holding the American president to ransom. They ransomed the billions. The release of Iranian assets, about 150 billion. I don't really pay attention to the numbers, but it was a lot of money, like about 150 billion, and it was about 2 billion in cash, so I understand, that went on the pallets to Iran. Okay, that was because bin Laden was alive and well in Iran at that time.
The notion of a double, I don't know if you've heard of the book Devil's Double, but it was about Uday Hussein, Saddam Hussein's son, and it was made into a movie. He managed to escape, but I had been hired at one point to do research on dictators, Saddam and Gaddafi being two of them, and looked into Uday, who like at a very young age saw someone at school that looked like him, and went to him and said, I want you to be my double. And I forget the name in Arabic at the moment of what double is, but the boy says no, and then he's thrown into a cell and is in solitary confinement, and they threaten to kill his parents, and basically he realizes he has no choice, and then he undergoes plastic surgery, has to take up his mannerisms, and in the end the double managed to escape and sought refuge, I think, in Ireland for a while. I don't know if you've heard of that story, but it's not, I mean, they talk about islands like clone farms and doubles, and now like they almost talk very loosely, people who say, oh, that's his double, or that's his double, or that's not really Boris. So I don't know if you can comment on the popularity of doubles.
It's very common in, well, it happens in the Middle East. I knew when I knew King Fahd bin Abdulaziz, the Saudi king, and they introduced me to a man who had the same blood type as King Fahd, and they told me, "Oh, what do you think he's here for? He has the same blood type." I said, "Well, he's here for blood if the king needs blood." They said, "No, he's a living organ donor. Whatever body parts the king needs, his job is to lie down on a table, and they will take the spare parts from him, and they will turn their backs on him while he wiggles to death, and they'll put those valuable body parts in the king quickly." So he traveled with a body part like a travel accessory.
Wow.
Yeah. That's not uncommon. Not uncommon. There are several princes who display their body part staff member like a fashionable accessory item.
So they're kind of like on ice in case.
No. These people they eat the best food.
I mean, they're just kind of the back burner is what I meant.
They're treated well. They have the best food. They get a lot of money. They have good medical care because they are a living, walking body part supply house.
Is it also common to find people that look like the?
Yes. Oh, I don't know how common it is. I mean, Saddam had his copies. I have no idea. That's not my interest.
Okay.
Falcons.
Okay, so I'm almost finished. Just wonder, for the record, that you say you have tapes and documents of Brandon Milhorn, tapes and documents of Hillary Clinton, tapes and documents of Richard Clarke, of John Brennan, of General Hayden, Leon Panetta, and that this is for and other various foreign heads of state, ministers, sheiks, and princes, and that this information is for the president.
It has to go to the president by law.
Okay.
And it's in a safe place.
Okay. And I'm sure you have more than one copy. Okay.
Actually, I wrote to the CIA director and explained that it's in an overseas location.
Okay. Is Nick still with us?
No, he left.
Oh, should I call him back? Did he drop off or?
He has left.
Okay.
But anyway, what else can we chat about?
Well, it's an hour and 25 minutes, and is there anything that I've overlooked, anything that
Been
is
You've been very thorough.
that's good. That's good, Alan. Is there anything that I'm offering that I have here that has not been shared yet?
No, no. Just enjoy it and have fun with it, and we'll see what happens next. I know it's going to happen next, but let's watch and enjoy it.
Okay, so I've gone over everything.
Yeah.
Okay, Alan, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for your patience with me.
My pleasure.
And I hope that that we see justice. I mean, when this came out, the mainstream media pretty much shut it down pretty quickly.
Yes, they did, didn't they?
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know who's telling me, well, is this already old news? I mean, it really did make the news for it to become old news.
Yeah.
So what would be your best case scenario? And then we can kind of sum it up on that note.
It's all going to be fine. Everything's perfect just the way it is. I'm not the least bit worried. And at the end of the day, Iran will join the rest of the world. They will get rid of these terrorists. President Trump will get the credit. He will take the initiative.
He will get reelected.
Absolutely, because he could be sleepwalking and he will win. I guarantee you. No. I'm not calculating. I know he's going to win. I knew this. In the first election, when his numbers were the lowest, I told everybody he's going to win. And I'm saying it now, he will win. The last time I voted, I was 18 years old. I waited until his first campaign. I voted the second time in my life from the age of 18 was for Donald Trump. And I will vote again. And he will win. Now, I'm not partisan, but I believe in the vision of George Washington. As an angel sat at the foot of his bed and showed him the future of America. This is the era of Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, this is the time we live in today. He will be a president a second time. Guarantee.
I don't doubt that he will win. I do know that they're trying to bamboozle the elections with their mail-in voting, however.
Of course, people will do whatever you throw stones at the sun. It won't help. He will rise again.
Hear, hear. Yeah, if that, it's full-on communism.
I agree.
On that
So
note,
I'll be here. Just call me anytime.
okay, Alan, thank you for your time. God
My
bless you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.